I'm Annie Slumrod, Middle East editor at The New Humanitarian.
Hi, I'm Zainab Shamoun. I'm the project coordinator.
And this is WhatsApp Lebanon. So throughout the process, been having our own sort of series of conversations, which is how this whole project has come together. So thanks for, I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, coming on this journey with me. When I came up with the idea of the piece, which is a timeline of Lebanon's collapse that doesn't just focus on dates and events, but actually on the people sort of behind the news headlines or the conversations that they were having on WhatsApp throughout, I came up with the idea in part because I had been thinking about the day of the Beirut port explosion, which was almost 2 years ago now, on August 4th, 2020. And that sort of desperate feeling of trying to reach friends on WhatsApp. And I had also been thinking about if I looked through my own, I told you this at the start, if I look through my own WhatsApp messages, I think they would tell a really different story than probably the story that I would tell if someone asked, like, what's your life story, Annie? Like, there would probably be a lot more GIFs and things like that. When I came to this project, we'd worked together on one story that you'd written, which was a great piece. And one of the things I really liked about it was that you had spoken to people, not just in Beirut, which a lot of journalists do. You had spoken to people all over the country, which is part of the reason I felt like you might be right for the project. So when I came to you and I said, Zainab, I have this crazy idea. I've tweeted about it, and that's about it. What did you think?
I mean, first, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I mean, when you first told me about this idea, I couldn't hide my excitement. I feel like from our first conversation, we felt, yeah, this is right. We are the two persons to work on this project. So I was really excited because this project is about stories, personal stories. And for me, like in the field of journalism and writing and everything, personal stories are the most authentic and genuine source of information. They are also very relatable. So they have this aesthetics, like when someone reads a story that is personal is different than reading like purely scientific story or, very objective. So I was really excited because on a personal level, I love stories. And I loved it more because it's going to produce an archive, like documentation of an archive that is purely local. It's locally rooted by people who are living in the country. And this local perspective, we often see like in journalism, but sometimes it feels like for the purpose of the story itself, rather than just, we are not expecting what the people are going to share. So we don't have like a general direction that we are asking the people about. They are sharing what is important to them. So they are leading the story. They are narrating the stories. So that was really important for me, like to move to local perspective, and also to include people who live in Lebanon and are not Lebanese, because these people have their own experiences. They are part of the social fabric of the country, and they have their own experiences that can say a lot about what's happening in Lebanon. And the third reason that I was really excited about it, because it's very creative. I mean, WhatsApp messages, telling stories about through WhatsApp messages. When you first told me, like I told you, my WhatsApp itself, like I can come up with so many stories. Like I'm at once a political analyst, and at once I'm a very pessimist person who is nagging. At another time, I'm a hopeful person who's just sharing feelings. So it felt really creative. And as we moved forward, the shape of the project changed because of the circumstances. I started to feel that this project will provide an overall sensational, immersive experience, because it doesn't involve only reading. You can listen, you can see the illustrations, you can read the chats, so as if you are involving all of your senses at once. And one of the important things that is going to revive your memory in a way, and it's going to trigger your feeling, because just collecting the chats made me think a lot, whether the explosion, whether October 17, I mean, it brings this feeling of sadness in a way, because it's a moment that ended and it was very promising, but it also gave me that feeling that how we were all together in this, and what if October 17 comes again, you know, that kind of hope that we felt at that time. So I really love this project, and as we moved forward, I started to see its value more. Yeah, this is in a nutshell what made me so excited. And of course, working with you, Annie, I mean, we worked on that piece, and it was so enriching to work with someone like you. And yeah, I'm so happy that you approached me. I felt like I was in the right place.
I mean, yeah, I felt like as soon as we started talking, I was like, yep, this is going to work.
Yeah.
Although I guess lots of things didn't work, which maybe we should talk about those. I mean, at the beginning, I came up with this idea and I was like, great, I'm going to tweet about it in Arabic and English. And we were talking about it. We were like, we can crowdsource tweets from like people, and that will be the story. And then we realized that not that many people responded, or that wouldn't necessarily get us the cross section, the sort of diversity of perspectives that we were looking for, which is one of the places that you came in. I mean, we landed eventually after a lot of discussion on having 5 people. And I know it wasn't easy to find 5 people who wanted to go through their WhatsApp history and share it with the public. I mean, so your job as project coordinator, one of the things was to find those people. Can you tell me about like how that went?
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the first part of the project, when we first had this open call, it was like for us, we were expecting like 1 month, we're going to receive tons of WhatsApp chats.
Yeah.
But then like the first week passed, the second week passed, and people were really cautious with that. They had a lot of questions for what are you going to use these WhatsApp chats?
Right.
It's a new ideas. And people, especially in Lebanon and in our region in general, they are very concerned about personal security, like this data. Maybe if you are very critical in this data about the government, or you are saying things that are, if you say them out in public, you might be in danger. So people had this safety concern. And for me, it was a bit challenging. I had to explain like via voice notes like on a side note, what is very enjoyable about this project, that it is WhatsApp Lebanon, and most of the work was done over WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's right. Between you and me, and with you and the participants,
yeah,
it's like you've just been on WhatsApp constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Like sending tons of WhatsApp messages and just explaining over and over again. And another element that made it even more challenging and put on me like a responsibility, that some of like all of the past 2 years were full of like stressful things happening in the country, traumatic events like the explosion. So it was really important also to protect the people. Going through the WhatsApp chats is not an easy thing. It's overwhelming sometimes, and it triggers past traumas. So also like we wanted to be thoughtful about that, and having it open, it feels like you are not controlling maybe what other people will go through. Like they might find it like an interesting idea, but then when they start going through that, it will trigger a lot of feeling that might be hurtful for them without them even noticing. So this on one hand, and the lack of like we had to follow up with all the people and maybe reach out to the network, and we didn't want to end up like having WhatsApp stories from all my network. We wanted to be something really open.
Zainab's friends on WhatsApp.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where comes the idea of selecting profiles and doing deep digging, because like even we want to be as representative as possible, but even when you have an open call, maybe some people will be left behind. Like we try our best to do that. So I found like that approach, if we selected the profiles that are from different like nationalities, we have Afaf in Tripoli, we have Basil from the south living in Dahia, then he moved out south Dahia, we have Roger Syrian, we have Mohammed Palestinian, and we have our Rosa, a migrant worker. Like it gives an overall like picture about what these communities are like suffering in the country and are experiencing in the country. And one of the challenges, like even I was thinking about profiles, I asked friends, I posted on my Instagram stories, please share it, maybe people are interested. One of the challenges, like sometimes you find your profile who is very interested to participate in that, but they don't have WhatsApp messages. they don't have they delete WhatsApp messages.
Right. We discovered that. We had one person who we were really excited about.
Yeah.
And she had given her phone to her mom. And so, you know, those messages were all gone.
All the data disappeared, all the archive.
Right.
Like now, I started to tell people, don't delete your messages. I mean, these are source of information. You never know.
Now you're like harassing people. Never delete a message.
Don't do it. You know, and there's
history.
this new feature on WhatsApp, not very new, but like the disappearing messages. So after maybe 24 hours or a certain period of time, your messages can simply disappear. So yeah, that was really a big challenge. And sometimes we feel, oh no, we need this profile. But at the end, like I felt all the profiles that we ended up with, they are perfect for this project. And they all like work together really well. And bits from everyone like made the picture really complete in a way. Of course, there are also a lot to tell as well, but this is at least like a part of what happened during Lebanon from their perspectives. And this is one challenge: no messages, no content. Another challenge was finding the migrant community
I
profile.
wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, that was really challenging because you know, sometimes when you are a minority in a country, I mean, it's very well known, the vulnerable communities suffer the most, and they are the most cautious as well. Like it's hard to have this element of trust with them, especially with all that they suffer, the country, the kafala system, and the.
But let's explain the kafala. Let me explain the kafala system, or you can, for people who don't know what it is. So to be a domestic or a migrant worker, usually migrant domestic worker in Lebanon, you have to have a sponsor, which is called the kafala system, and it's usually through like an employment agency, but the system means that basically your job and your housing and often your food is dependent on your employer, and they can take your passport away. It's a system that's very easily abused. I think you'd probably agree. So like for people who don't know, I mean, I know that you spoke to quite a few migrant workers, and then their sponsors who were interested, and then their sponsors end up saying no, right?
Refused. Yeah. I mean, it's the kafala system is like owning the life of the migrant worker, owning their decisions. And that was really like, I was so upset, but what I can do, like I cannot put the migrant worker in a critical situation with her, you know, the one that she works for. So that was challenging because many of them were interested, but like they have to tell their the people that they work for. But then like we also find, and even like I tried to talk to collectives that work with migrant workers, but obviously these collectives, like they have a lot of work and they are not very like responsive. They are busy, and sometimes they request things that might complicate the work, and we approached them because we wanted them to be like the easy way to do the work. They know the community, they can select the profile. So that didn't work as well. But then it happens, like a friend of mine living in Beirut, she has a very good relationship with her neighbor Rosa, which is our contributor. And I talked to Rosa, and things worked well with Rosa, although like we had to there was a delay because sometimes I need to visit her at her work and she's so busy. It's the only place where we can talk because Rosa works from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. So it's a really long working time. But yeah, then it worked with Rosa. Maybe we struggled to, no, actually with Rosa, the idea of the project was like she really got it from the very first beginning, from WhatsApp voice notes, just me explaining. But what we struggled with is how we're gonna document those screenshots, voice notes, because Rosa communicates mainly in voice notes, and like you have to
in Amharic as well,
and Amharic. Yeah. So it was hard for me to archive those without a translation and all of that. But we made it happen.
Eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I learned, something you mentioned a little while ago, is that, you know, it was hard for people when we did an open call. It's really hard for people to go through their messages over the past few years, because it's been, you know, as you mentioned, in October, 2019, were these massive protests, which was for a lot of people in Lebanon a really, really hopeful time. And since then, there's been this crash in, I guess, like almost every part of life, like economic, but it impacts everything. And I guess it made me think a lot about what we were asking people to do, and that for the participants, that we talked about this, that we need to pay them for their emotional labor. But I've been thinking about it. I mean, you've been working on this project too, and you have been going through all the stuff that we're talking about. How has it been for you to sort of relive these past few years alongside these participants?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, like sometimes they made me feel sad. They made me feel, what if we go back in time? But I was pretty much focused on making this happen. Every time, like I
That's true.
feel like I'm dwelling into that, because like even doing that project, we have the electricity problems, we have fuel problem. Like sometimes I struggle with the Wi-Fi. I'm not being able to reach out them easily. So I have these external challenges, and then going through the chats, like it's an emotional experience. I feel like I managed this well, because I try to be very much focused on the final outcome. I want to make this happen. I want to make it as perfect as possible. We want to get the data. We want to be like accountable for the data that we are taking and turning into something really beautiful and really honestly telling about what's happening. So I feel I had my emotional, feelings during that, but I was able to control that. And this is not me usually. Usually, like I really dwell when I get stuck in a certain period. But I feel like this project was empowering in a way, honestly. Like I felt a responsibility. I felt like, yeah, it's time to support the people that are sharing stories with me, and not the other way around. And obviously just reading their conversations were supportive for me. Like it gave this sense that we were all part of this. We are all experiencing the same feelings. We all go through the same things. I'm not alone with that. So in a way, it was also comforting rather than for me. And, people react to these kinds of things differently. So for me, not to be a very, like positive la la land person, but I really felt that kind of comfort, like the sense of a community. I'm not alone, and I'm doing something with a great purpose. So I need to be just focused on that.
That's interesting. I mean, I did notice there were so many commonalities. I mean, these people are totally different in a lot of ways. Like they have different senses of humor, as we've been laughing with them together. Like they have totally different musical tastes, which is another. Like they have different jobs. A lot of them. I mean, to be fair, when we were finding people that wanted to participate, they tend to be people who are interested in storytelling. So some of them are journalists, activists, people who are interested in this type of thing. But they are really, really different. But I did notice. I mean, we've gone through their messages so many times now, that there are so many common points. I mean, just everyone was talking about the exchange rate, which I think is a conversation like I rarely had in my WhatsApp with my friends. I'm never thinking about when should I exchange money. Everyone's talking about that. Everyone's talking about the bank. People are talking about electricity, like everybody. And then of course there's the moments, the things that would make the news, like the Beirut explosion, or when there were clashes in Tayoun in Beirut. That of course then everybody's talking about that too.
But just to add to that, like we knew people that they have a lot of common experiences, but what we ended up, yes, we have the emerging teams, but each was very distinct. Like each was
you can totally tell now who's like, that's a Roger message.
Who's who? Exactly. You can see their characters are part of the experience, and it's very different. Yet we have all these emerging themes, because this is normal. Like even not only these 5, you have like the wider population. They all go through these conversations about the exchange rate and electricity, because it impacts you on a very daily basis, like during the day, multiple times it impacts you. It's part of your everyday life. So of course it's part of your WhatsApp chats.
One of the things I was thinking about a lot is that as a journalist, I mean, I've been thinking about this for the past few years, is that journalists, especially foreign journalists, like when we come in and ask people questions or write a story, we interview people, but we're asking the questions for the story that we want to know. So we're asking basically what we want. We already sort of know what we want people to tell us, or at least the subject. And I think one of the things I really liked about this project is that I had nothing to do with what people said. It already happened. So I couldn't, I wasn't really shaping, I mean, we're shaping the narrative in some ways, in some ways, meaning we can't use every single message that they have, and we can't ask them to share every single message. But I think it made me think a lot more about the value of listening to people. I mean, even at the start of the project, when I had tweeted out in English and Arabic, and you said to me, by the way, your Arabic language isn't gender inclusive. Like I hadn't, and I was like, which was a great learning experience for me. And then some people had got in touch with me from Twitter and on email, and I had talked to Lebanese friends and colleagues just for their ideas about how this project might work. And then once you and I got going, it's been a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
As I think I've said, our WhatsApp stream is well, I hope no one ever sees it, but no, I'm just kidding. It is. You're really good at stickers. I just want to say.
Yeah, I'm the supplier of stickers here in
honestly,
my hometown.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, so it just made me think about as a journalist listening, and that also came into play with the illustrator. So we were thinking about which illustrators we wanted, and we had a dream illustrator, which is who is Rafi, who ended up being the illustrator who's working on this project.
And I like that we both had him as a dream. Like when I first mentioned his name, you was like, yes, this is the one that I have in mind. So the stars aligned.
Yes, indeed. So he ended up getting on board with the project, and we really let him also, his experiences drive the art direction of the project, which I think is another thing that I'm excited about. That we have a Lebanese illustrator who's been through also all the stuff that you've been through, and that these 5 people have been through. What else? I mean, actually, I want to ask you a question. So one of the things we asked all the 5 people, in addition to asking them to share their messages, we also asked them a bunch of sort of like biographical questions. And one of the things we asked was, what has Lebanon's collapse changed most about your life? So now on the camera, I want to ask you the same question. Zainab, what?
Oh my God, I'm the one who's asking contributors. Annie, what you're doing?
I'm putting you on the spot in my job as a journalist.
Yeah. What has changed in my life after the collapse?
Yeah, or because of, during.
This is not like a direct answer question. I would say, like, this is because just out of the top of my mind, because this is evident in my behavior, I'm more attached to my family. I'm more attached to my family and staying with them at home in my hometown. I work remotely, and I used to live in Beirut. And the last period that I lived in Beirut was during the explosion, so the summer of 2020. And after that, my work became remotely in my previous job, and I moved to Nabatiyya, back to my parents. And since then, I haven't lived in Beirut like I used to do before. Like I used to live from Monday to Friday, the typical, and then going over the weekend. So I feel one thing that has changed, that I'm more attached to the family. I'm more, because like when the explosion happened, like I was alone in the apartment, and it was like, look, now I'm having goosebumps, but it was so, oh, what's happening?
We don't have to talk about this on camera.
I didn't expect that.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah. Like like it felt lonely. It felt like this explosion, like it's beside you, next to your building. And I've lived like the war. I'm already familiar with that. So I feel like I'm less, like I'm more resilient to these kinds of, aircrafts, these sounds. I lived in the South all my life, but that was exceptional. Like I cannot, like the sound, like I cannot explain enough how scary it was. Like I was really scared, and I was alone. So I feel like since then I try to avoid Beirut, like sleeping in Beirut alone as much as possible. Like I feel this kind of safety here, although like Lebanon, everywhere you might be, you are prone to danger. But here, like I feel like I'm with my parents. And another thing, surprisingly, the urge of leaving the country disappeared. the urge of leaving Lebanon, because before the collapse, I mean, we had this accumulative crisis, and I've always thought, yeah, I'm gonna leave the country for a PhD and maybe try to spend like the first 10 years of my career life abroad, save money, and have this opportunity just to live a life without having to worry about the smallest details, having a routine and having all of that. After the collapse, and it was like not directly the urge disappeared, but now at this point when the collapse, like we've seen everything, I hope we've seen everything, maybe there's more, it feels like I'm more attached to the country because we are losing it. Like now, ask me if I don't think that anything will change soon. To be very honest, I don't want to say that, yeah, I'm hopeful and the country will, no, nothing will change anything soon. I cannot see a glimpse of hope, but I feel I want to stay because I'm losing the country. I'm not sure how to explain that, but this also like has really changed because like previously, yes, we want to leave, we want to apply to scholarships, we want to start because the easiest way is to start as a student.
Right.
But now I don't even think about that.
That's really interesting. I mean, I know you're really attached to the country just because I know you, but I mean, one of the things that has happened over the past few years is that so many people are leaving. I mean, everyone I know has all their, just like I keep getting, that's actually one of the reasons maybe I thought of the project was like all these messages like, oh yeah, my uncle left, my cousin left, my brother left, everybody, a lot of people who can leave are leaving just because it's really, really hard to make a living in Lebanon. But so you've sort of had the opposite, the opposite feeling. I mean, also you're like, I know you'd say you're not optimistic, but all these really like objectively terrible things have happened. And we talked, I think, the day after the most recent parliamentary elections, and you were so excited. I mean, what is it that keeps you still excited or hopeful? I don't know if hopeful is the right word, just
I think the word is just pushing through. Like many people have stopped pushing through, and this is totally fine. Like we have capacities, but I feel we've done a lot, and we know that there's a lot of complicated things that will not allow us to reach where we want to be. But I feel it's too early to stop pushing through in a way. Not because like during the elections, I was excited because I felt like I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
I have my opportunity to vote for change, but I wasn't very hopeful.
No, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, in a way that, yeah, these new people who might be in the parliament will do any change. And I didn't have that, but this experience, like this democratic experience that we lack in the country, and maybe in a way it's a very like, superficial, like you can go and vote, but especially in my hometown, like Nabatia, who will win. But maybe because of that, like because the majority here are of a certain, political direction, it felt really like empowering to go to the election place and just elect for someone against them, like on a personal level, a personal satisfaction. Like I did what I have to do, and I'll keep pushing through as much as I can. I don't think that I'm gonna push through a lot, but this is what the reality imposed on us. Like you need to push through, and as I told you, like people react differently to that. Many people, like I know, they're really defeated in a way, and I can see why. I can see why, because even while pushing through, you have these small moments of defeats. I mean, and I'm a privileged person, just to acknowledge that I'm a privileged person. We are all suffering from all the collective crises, but I suffer differently than a person who is working like locally or not having a job. I have a certain level of a privilege, and sometimes I go through small moments of defeats, maybe from the smallest thing. I want to go on a road trip, just take it to go out, and I don't have a fuel in my car to do that. I have an appointment and I have to be delayed like for 4 hours just standing in the queue to fill my tank with the fuel. These kinds, as much as you push it through, sometimes they are very heavy on your burden. So you keep oscillating in the emotional.
Yeah, but I mean that's exactly what this project has also showed. I mean, it's just you're living the same things that these people that are five WhatsAppers have been dealing with, and as we've been talking throughout the last, I don't know how many months it's been, how many times has your electricity cut out? I would not even try to count anymore. Yeah, I mean, that feeling of pushing through, I feel like the word resilience is often overused because I'm worried that it means like people need to rely, people should be resilient, when like it's okay to feel really, depressed or anxious because of the situation.
Exactly. And resilience, like this word specifically, we have like sensitivity against it because it romanticizes the crisis in a way. No, if we are surviving, it's not because we are resilient, it's because we are pushing through. The pushing through, like there's effort. It's not we are resilient,
you're not like a resilient people or something.
Exactly. No, we're not. We put effort in order to keep surviving in the country.
I guess the reactions of, it's like what you were saying about like different reactions to this being valid is interesting, because the people we talked to had really different reactions. Like there were people who said they've become depressed because of the crisis, that their mental health has been really impacted. One person said actually it's been kind of good for him because he was unemployed and felt sort of stuck before, and now that once everyone was, he sort of felt like, well, I belong.
And in a way, because like before the crisis, there was a crisis, and a lot of people were living that, and whether unemployment, whether like the economic situation and all of that, a lot of people were living that, and others were still not living that. They were still not impacted. And sometimes when you're watching around, you feel, how are you people functioning? And the system is really like rotten from the inside. So when the collapse happened, you started to feel like this sense, now we are all in this together. I'm not alone. I'm not suffering alone. So I understand where that feeling comes from, because like people react differently to things. Some people would say, no, everything is all right, while you can see that, especially if you are invested politically, you are an activist, you follow up and all of that, you can see that there's something wrong, and you start wondering why everyone else is not reacting to that. Why is everyone else is very self-centered in a way, like, khalas, I'm doing the work, I'm working fine, I'm happy, I'm going out, while you cannot do that because you are very invested emotionally in what's happening around you. So I understand where this comes from.
Maybe I think it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't know if we've actually talked about it that much, but the backdrop to this whole thing, to the, I don't know, collapse crisis, there's so many different words for what's been happening. I mean, for me, is that it started when the protests, what a lot of people call the October 17th revolution, because that's the first day in 2019 when there were really big protests. I mean, that was what to me felt like, for a lot of people, a really, really hopeful time in Lebanon for the first time. And you can probably explain better the sort of feeling that everyone from all different religions, which is, of course, in Lebanon, the political system is based on sort of institutionalized sectarianism. Maybe you can, I don't know, can you tell me a little bit more about what it felt like at the start? I understand, like what you said, there was already a crisis before, which is, of course, one of the reasons that people started protesting. And we can talk about the WhatsApp angle to that maybe afterwards. But I mean, you were out there protesting, and as with, I don't know, tens of thousands of people, how many people were out there going, what did that time feel like for you?
It felt like, now when I revisit what it felt, I feel naive, but no, it's not that, but because we are living now in the reality, and at that time we were imagining a very different reality. It felt really hopeful, and it felt like, oh my God, it's finally happening. It's finally happening. We are leading our own spontaneous revolution. And what made it more hopeful, we had people not from just every sect, like every religion. We had people who belong to political parties, especially in the first, after they were called to get out of streets. That was the point where the revolution vibe started to, you have the conspiracy theories and all of that. But during the first week, like, people who belong to political parties that we are critical of, they were part, and they were saying, I love this political party, but I'm hungry. I love this political party, but the economic crisis is just, it's too much to handle. And like the WhatsApp issue, it's not for like when it started, like people start writing because of the WhatsApp, people are going to the revolution. It was, there's a saying in Arabic, but I don't know how to say it in English. But it was the small stick that made everything collapse.
Yeah. So in English, it's either the last straw or the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly. This is it. القشة التي كسرت ظهر البعير. Yeah, exactly. So that's why, like, it felt, and we were very inspired by revolutions happening in different regions, like especially the Egyptian revolution in a way, because during that time, like, the Lebanese, I feel we are very invested in everything that's happening around us, especially activists and all of that. So we felt they made it happen anyway, like at that part, January 25, they made it happen anyway. And it was a very hopeful moment. And in Tunisia and all of that. And then, like, yeah, it's our turn and we will make it happen. So that was the most hopeful, like finally everyone is on streets, and in all the regions in Lebanon, in Tripoli, in Nabatea. I remember because I was between Beirut and Nabatea. So in the weekends, I would go on streets in Nabatea, and you are literally chanting against one of the most like politicians that is very, well in the parliament, about whom I'm talking. So you were literally in Nabatea that belongs to them in a way. You are cursing him in a way, or you're chanting against them. And that was so empowering. Not because you're just cursing. I mean, this significance, like this courage to do that, we didn't have this before. So yeah, this sense, like seeing all the country, and also I don't want to sound cringy, but even like the chanting between areas, like from Tripoli, they were giving like greetings to Dahia, to Dahia. They are encouraging people in Dahia to go on ground. They were like chanting for each other because at one point,
but maybe people won't understand why that's significant.
Yeah, because the Lebanon is a sectarian country, and like the political parties since the civil war, we have been divided into different areas, and each area has the majority people belonging to a certain sect or religion. And in Tripoli, they are mostly like Sunni Islam, and in Dahia, they are Shia Islam.
Right,
and,
which is South Beirut.
Yeah, southern Beirut. And unfortunately, the political parties from both sides, it's always when you want to, what's the word in English? شد العصا بالطائفة. When you want to, I can't find the word in English, but if you want to like make people scared, or you want them to just to stick to you, you start to make them afraid from the different other, and the Shia and the Sunnah specifically, because it goes back to historical
conquer and divide and conquer.
Yeah, divide and conquer, exactly. And the historical context of Shia and Sunnis also like has a lot of tensions going back to history, like thousands of years. So they still use that to make this separation. These want to kill you. These are, for example, the Shia will dominate the country. This is one myth. And the other myth, the Sunni want to kill Shia because they are they support Daesh, for example. This, like, people actually are scared of each other. So here comes the significance. Like it feels those who adopt this kinds of mindset are a minority, while like the reality on the ground, like people, they just want to get together. But unfortunately, because people have been used to these kinds of narratives sometimes, and our political system is not idiot. Like, it's one of the most evil political, I would say, like the political system in Lebanon is one of the most evil political systems in the world. They have these techniques, propaganda, and triggering your emotions in a way, because they link religion to everything. And we have a lot of people who are religious and who care about their religion. So when the boundaries between your religious affiliation and your political affiliation is very vague because of what the political party is doing, it becomes much easier to control and like reclaim the narrative again, even if we had those small moments on the streets. So yeah.
Let's talk about the WhatsApp thing, because I think maybe people probably don't know. I mean, I said I came up with this idea because, or I don't want to take credit for it. I said I had this idea because of, trying to chase up people on WhatsApp after the explosion and just thinking about how I converse with people. But also, as you said, the first big day of the protests, there was, I know that the news media was definitely overplaying it and say that people were protesting because of this tax on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But there was a link. I mean, can you explain what that was?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, they wanted to add a $6 tax on WhatsApp. So people have to pay to use
for calls, right?
To make
WhatsApp
for WhatsApp
calls,
which people usually use because it's our like calling system and the network and all of that is one of the most expensive ones in the world. So
right.
WhatsApp was like in a certain like a relief for you to have like long conversations with so like little money. You have your Wi-Fi, you can use WhatsApp. So I feel like at that point, what actually happened, and not also the WhatsApp, like also the WhatsApp, also what is free worldwide in Lebanon, we want to pay for that.
Right.
So that was like hard to believe and hard to comprehend. It's not what the people were protesting for. No, we don't want the $6. It was like,
yeah,
oh my God, this is too much. Like we say, تخينة تخنتوها كتير. No, this is too much, and no one is talking. So that was mostly like what triggered people. Also, this is small escape that we have. You want to take it away from us, and you don't have the right to do that. You don't own WhatsApp,
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that was, so the idea, the government's idea was, okay, so the economy is already flagging, they didn't have any reserves, and they thought they'd be able to make some money off of this. Obviously it didn't succeed. They withdrew the idea pretty quickly, but then everything kind of went downhill from here. The other thing I learned about WhatsApp from you and from these messages, which I think I use WhatsApp mostly just to talk to my friends, like and to send pictures and whatever. But another thing I learned is that people were getting a lot of traffic updates and like news updates from these WhatsApp groups. Can you tell me more about that? I mean, I know a little bit about it now from reading everyone's messages, but is that how well you were using WhatsApp too?
Yeah, of course. Like even before the revolution, but of course during the revolution and afterwards, it became more frequent. You have these news groups over WhatsApp, and during the revolution, people who were going on the ground, they started to have their own WhatsApp groups to update each other. Where are you going? Where we want to go today? What kind of talks we want to host? Because the revolution was not only us chanting on the streets. There were also like talks with the experts, and we want to understand what's happening. So people used WhatsApp to communicate and to update each other about the news, and also to warn each other when the security forces are becoming more violent, they are approaching. They just tell each other over WhatsApp, don't go to this area, or we need support in this area, especially like the Jisr ring. They always needed support there because haram, so they ask support on Jisr ring, so you could see that. But
wait, explain for people who don't know what Jisr ring is.
So it's a place in Beirut that it's the first place where people went on the ground and blocked the road. So it has this significance. It leads to the Martyrs Square, but like cutting that road would in a way paralyze the movement in Beirut, in a way between like the West Beirut and East Beirut. So it had its significance, and like the people who were going there were really all like the kind of the people who don't have any political affiliations. They were very much invested in the revolution.
They were there all night. I mean, 24 hours a day.
They would sleep there, like have a sleep in. It was such a significant place, like symbolic place during the revolution. So they were using WhatsApp, and you have these news groups just giving updates on which roads are blocked and if there's any like injuries and the prices. As the prices started to increase, they share all kinds of information. But there's a downside for that, because like everyone has access to WhatsApp, so I can and from that point you start to have the wave of misinformation and fake news. So I can just create a group and call it, I don't know, Nabatiya News, and start, disseminating news that are fake. Or sometimes politicians have, like political parties have their own groups that start to broadcast messages that are false about the revolution, for example. And that was used during the protests. Like the revolution looked like the Saudis are funding the revolution, the Americans are funding the revolution, and start sending photos maybe going back to years ago, this kind of...
I remember that.
So it always like disrupts the spontaneous movement on the ground, because you have like mass information around you, like everything gives you information, and you cannot make sure what is credible and what is not. But yeah, it was a major source of the news. Many people they don't watch news, they just check their WhatsApps. And here I just want to highlight a point that not only WhatsApp during the revolution was part of like the news dissemination, also at that time, because the mass media in Lebanon, like the mainstream media, has played a role in yeah, they covered the revolution, but the way they were covering the revolution, or the questions that they were asking to the people, in a way weakened the revolution in a way, because like sometimes you can't have like someone who belongs to a political party, he loves this political party and he's in the revolution because he's asking for his economic rights, and then you start asking him, you mean كلن يعني كلن, so you mean your political party? I mean, this person will definitely shy away from the screen and start to feel that there's something wrong. So there are a lot of alternative news agencies that came out after the revolution. Electronic on Instagram started as an Instagram page and then turned into website. They also have groups. So this alternative scene of news dissemination was very popular during the revolution and after that, and WhatsApp was part of that.
And now these days, I mean, I've been seeing, I guess not just on WhatsApp, but also Facebook, other social media, a lot of people using WhatsApp to ask for things that they need, like because in pharmacies there's has been shortages of medicines, like really specific things. I think in our piece there's someone asking who got a message asking for baby formula. I mean, do you get messages like those too?
Of course, because WhatsApp, what's good about WhatsApp, it can be very quickly disseminated. I mean, if I have 400 contacts on my phone who use WhatsApp, I can just broadcast the message, forward it to everyone, and you will have your request disseminated. So I receive those all the time about like, hey, there are groups for that as well. There are groups not only for aid, like in terms of medications, because we have a medical crisis as well. There are groups for employment as well, like employment groups if there are job opportunities and all of that, so that people, because we know like there's the unemployment rate is very high. So like for everything, like even for fuel in a way, like which station is open or which station is closed. Like, do you know any station that is still filling cars? And also like the black market on WhatsApp as well. Like you have the WhatsApp groups for exchanging. What's the dollar today? Sometimes they give you like a better rate to exchange with them, better than what the exchanger is rating. So it's used for all sort of things, like even selling fuel illegal in the black market, because at that time people used to bring gallons and just fill them and put them at their house, which is totally unsafe, and sell them to other people who need the fuel emergently on the black market rate, so they would profit from that. So also that can be used like via WhatsApp. There are groups for that. Whatever you need, you can find.
I think one of the messages, positive and negative. One of the messages, what is it? Bassa says like, where is the? I mean, he's joking, but he says like,
where's the black market?
I just want to ask people, where is the black market and how do I get there? I thought that was really funny.
That was really funny because like I shared this with Basil. I remember when I started. No, I'm going to the black market. Don't talk to me. I'm going to the black market. I'm gonna sell my dollars. So, and it's as if it's a physical place, while it is like everywhere on the street. You find people like holding like a stack of Lebanese money and just doing that, so you can exchange. This is the black market.
I mean, although to be fair, like Lebanese, like the 1,000 lira bill, which is kind of like the iconic bill, is now, I mean, I don't know how much a huge stack of 1,000s would be worth, like nothing
today. At all. And now like the 1,000 does not buy you anything. It does not get you anything at all.
It's officially it still buys you $1.50, right?
Yeah, at the government level. And just to add to that, since we are talking about WhatsApp, so the Touch and Alpha companies,
those are the two main telecom companies in
telecom
Lebanon.
Companies, they still charged everything on the 1,500 rate.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Until last week.
Oh, okay.
everything changes. Everything changed. So they started to charge on the black market rate as
Because
well.
for anybody out there who's watching or listening, the officially since I don't know since when, since this, a long time, the Lebanese lira has been pegged to the dollar.
Yeah.
So there's an official exchange rate, and then there's the exchange rate that people are actually able to use to,
Yeah.
you know, to get money. And we've been talking for a long time. Do you have anything that you want to ask me?
I want to ask you about what's your favorite message? I mean,
Mm.
I feel like it's more challenge for me. We have a huge amount of data, okay, and we're going through it. But I'm familiar with it because I received them on WhatsApp. I tied them. But then you had like an Excel sheet full of messages. I feel it's a bit overwhelming. So I wonder, like now, if after going through them more than one time, if you have like one favorite message, maybe from a specific person or a theme. I'm curious to know about that.
It's really hard to choose a favorite message. I do think the one about where's the black market makes
Yeah.
me laugh every time I see it. I can really relate. There's a few messages from the bank just about you know, how long the wait is. And I feel like those come through to me really strongly. Like I can sort of imagine how it feels, because I think because I've been frustrated at the bank and I'm not living in an economic crisis. So like everybody gets annoyed at the bank. Everybody in the world gets annoyed at the bank. It's an annoying place. And then this thought that you would go there and wait for hours. And I think Afaf says in one that there are people sleeping there. I felt that it came through really strongly, and it really impacted me. And I think another one that comes back to me, well, as you know, I've been dreaming in WhatsApp messages, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad at this point in the project, but one of Afaf's friends asks her just how she's doing in this time, and she says that she says, I used a word today that I've never used before. I'm devastated.
Devastated, yeah.
And I think that was really, I mean, that just sort of, that sums it up. But you know, there's also happy stuff in there, which I think is great. Like there's jokes and there's sarcasm and so I'm happy that we got a range. But yeah, I think that one where she says I'm devastated really really hit hard for me. What's your favorite message?
Mine, I already told you about it, and now you will relate more why I like it. It's the one by Muhammad when someone asks him, do you love Beirut? And he said, like, wherever you go, Beirut is in your heart. When I read that, like, I found it fascinating because he's Palestinian. I mean, their situation is really bad in the country and the government really despises them. But I could relate to that. Yeah, I feel what you're saying. And I remember at that point when I read it, I talked to Muhammad on WhatsApp and I told him like this message like stood with me because I really share the same feelings with you, because I've been asking him before, are you thinking of leaving the country? And he was like, no, I didn't I didn't discuss a lot. But then when I read the message, like, oh my God, we're sharing something. And we talked about this loss of the country. And he was like, exactly, even if Lebanon is not his country, like he was born and he lived here. So it's basically his country as well, regardless of how the government is really bad with Palestinians. So that stood with me. Like you need to have a lot of love to this country in order to say that. And this kind of love is really amazing.
Yeah, I remember when you got that one, we talked about it a lot. It's what's the saying that wherever you go, you said Beirut is in your soul or in your heart.
Wherever you go, either Beirut is in your heart or Beirut is the soul, something like that. It's so nice. It's so nice. And one thing that I enjoyed, like when screenshots had stickers, because I'm a fan of stickers, and we really like we overuse things here. Whenever something is a trend, we overuse it. So at a point, we were actually doing our whole communication on WhatsApp by stickers. Like I can tell you a complete story via stickers on WhatsApp.
You really can. I have to say, I
have a sticker for everything. So it was funny, like to see those stickers also part of the WhatsApp chats.
What do you want readers to get out of this piece?
the people internally and people like who are connected to Lebanon in a way, whether in the diaspora, I want them to feel that they are not alone in that. Like, I want them to feel that we are all part of it. They are not suffering alone. Everyone is suffering as well. Not that suffering is fine, but it just gives this kind of comfort. So I want them to know that, and I want them to see like the Palestinian and the Syrian and the migrant worker who are living in the country are also human beings, and they have their own sufferings that might be worse than what we are going through because they are a minority. So I also want them to get something from that, this Syrian or Palestinian refugee, they are not because of the crisis. They are not because this is one of the narratives that are being circulated, that these people, like, they are a burden on the country, but they are not the source of the crisis. They are suffering from the crisis just like we do. So I want them to get this also as well. And one thing also is about migrant worker. I mean, these people leave their countries to come to work in a household where sometimes they are lucky with people who are good with them, and sometimes they are really unlucky with people who are really bad, really evil people. So these people also have a story, and we need to include them more in the like new scene. It's not I mean, I know one of the people that I wanted to take part, her name is Komi. She has been like in the country for 20 years. I mean, she's part of the country now. She can tell a lot. So these people are also part of the story of the country, and they should not be like put on the side, or their experiences and voices are insignificant. Because one thing that Rosa mentioned when I asked her, why did you want to take part of the project? She was like, because it will reflect my voice. I mean, these people already have a voice. They just need a platform for it to be like disseminated. So one thing, just for people to see that we are not alone. We have much more in common than all the obvious differences that the political system or like everything around us try to focus on. We are not that different. We are just human beings who are suffering together. And also, I want them to remember the October 17 moment, because that was the best thing for me from the stories, remembering that moment and just imagining what if it happens again. So I want them to have this feeling, because it made me feel something sad on one hand, but it made me feel there's something good. I cannot explain it. There's something good about that moment.